Welcome to Fear and Greed, the Sunday edition. It's the 3rd of October 2021 and I'm Sean Aylmer. This is our Sunday show where we have a bit of a change of pace and we look at some of our favourite stories from the week. Sometimes they're related to business, often they're not. As always, I'm joined by the Fear and Greed team. Adamski, good morning.
Good morning, Sean.
Mickey T, good morning.
Hello, Sean.
Now, Adam, spreadsheet man, some very good news for Fear and Greed this week. It was the end of the quarter and the end of the month, and so that's the time when we start looking at the numbers of listeners and those sorts of things. We had a record month.
We did. I mean, we're slightly pretending that we don't look at the figures every day, but in a month sense, yeah, we had a ripper. So we've gone up to 450,000 downloads in the month of September, which is definitely our best. So thank you to every single person who's downloaded and listened to Fear and Greed.
It's great news. Michael, you'd be happy with that. You do a lot of the hard work on production and social media and things.
Yeah, it's really encouraging and it's really, we're very grateful to everybody for listening. And I'm going to squeeze in a very quick plug for our brand new newsletter as well, which seems to be something I do pretty much every chance I get, to head to fearandgreed.com.au and sign up to the newsletter and get the latest business news every morning straight to the inbox. Adam, have you signed up?
I certainly have, Michael, and we've had some great feedback too. So anyone who's reading that newsletter and wants to have some input, wants us to change something or has a query, please do get in touch. We'd love to incorporate great feedback in it.
My favourite piece of feedback has been the listener who informed they like the way that we gently give it to you during the Sunday show.
Gently giving it to me, yes.
I'm sorry, not for a moment have I tried to be gentle on you, Adamski.
It's called, full and frank feedback. In fact, someone suggested that maybe we needed a safe word, like if any of us were felt that, we were uncomfortable with the way things were going. So, look, given the great story this week out of the USA, I thought maybe Free Britney could be a good safe word.
Words, Adam. It's two words there, Free Britney.
Good safe words.
How about just Britney? So if anyone comes in with Britney.
Okay.
Now, Adamski, while you're listening, which you come in and out on that sort of front, people may not know this, but Adam used to manage bands. And I'm not sure whether you're actually a guitarist yourself, but you were very interested this week in Johnny Ramone's guitar from the famous punk band of the mid-70s, the Ramones, going for $1.2 million. How's that?
Yeah, Sean, unlike you, I have a great appreciation of the Ramones. One of their legends was being able to get through about 20 songs in 60 minutes. Those live gigs were frenetic.
Yeah, I mean, I want to like the Ramones. And interesting, so there are 4 Ramones. They all changed their last name so they could all be a Ramone. What was it? Johnny and
Dee
Dee, Joey, and the 4th one who we can't remember at the moment. They changed their names. They, great punk band, but I think they were a bit of an acquired taste.
We had about a minute and a half to acquire each song.
You were explaining during the week they were famous for having songs of 2 minutes, certainly less than 3 minutes.
Absolutely. It was a frenetic rush and I loved it. But using that story as a bit of a reference point, on Friday there was an article and it got me thinking back to comments that Robbie Ferguson from the Australian financial technology company Immutable made in your interview with him 2 weeks ago. And that was about non-fungible tokens, or what gets called mostly NFTs. So an NFT is a unique digital token and it's usually part of the Ethereum cryptocurrency blockchain, and it establishes ownership of a digital asset. So that can be used to establish any digital property, ownership, a digital artwork, a video or a song, and it's also got other use cases. But last Friday, we learned that Immutable was joining forces with TikTok, the very popular video sharing app. And under that plan, the most popular TikTok videos will be auctioned to users in the form of NFTs.
Was that auctioned or auctioned?
Yeah, auctioned, isn't it?
Oh, Western Australia all over. Go on.
Britney.
No need for Britney just yet.
Okay, sorry.
So we're auctioning things. Yes, go on.
We're all in acceptable range. Carry on. Videos will be auctioned to users in the form of NFTs, and then the transactions would be handled by Immutable. So this is where Immutable and TikTok are working together.
Wow.
So that would mean that TikTok video creators, the really popular ones, aside from just learning about 80s and 90s music and interpretive dancing, they could be paid directly by their followers and maybe even make a career out of it. So to me, this is a fascinating new or newish business. Sean, how are you seeing it?
Look, I think it's a really interesting story. TikTok came out this week and said they had 1 billion active users. It's taken them 4 years to get to that level, the fastest of any social media group ever. I think the non-fungible tokens, and as you know, I sort of understand them now. It's like, well, there's actually a value in a digital asset, which I may not subscribe any value to it, nor would I subscribe $1.2 million to Johnny Ramone's guitar, but people do. So I kind of get that, and the idea that Immutable and TikTok get together and sort of put a value on these TikToks. I like the idea. I reckon it's probably a fad, though.
Well, let's see. Michael, can you see yourself doing a series of TikTok videos, maybe about coffee making or even some of your favourite weekly gripes?
Well, I am fond of a good gripe, but I'm a little bit ashamed to admit this, considering, as I've pointed out before, I am of a slightly different generation to both of you.
Whoa. Brittany.
Oh, I feel like Brittany's just getting tossed around here a little too much. I am not really into TikTok. I downloaded it. It's really cleverly done in that it is just so easy to get sucked into it and just spend hours. And I know of people professionals who will end up spending an hour or an hour and a half just going from one video to the next, because it flows so smoothly. So I can see how they've hit 1 billion users this week. It's extraordinarily addictive.
I hate to put a serious overtone in this conversation. It's a Sunday after all, but it's kind of interesting how Johnny Ramone's guitar, an NFT based on TikTok, the value of a Commonwealth Bank share, how much a ton of iron ore is worth, they're all just markets, and you have buyers and sellers. And this week, the equity markets in Australia, more so than anywhere else, have gone down, then they went up, and then they went down again. And the Commonwealth Bank, the biggest company in the country, its share price is swinging 2 to 3% per day without any news specific to Commonwealth Bank. It's happening off momentum around the economy. All these things are just markets. Whether I think a cryptocurrency is a good idea or not, there are people that do think it's a good idea. Therefore, there's a market. Same with Commonwealth Bank, same with NFTs, same with Johnny Ramone's guitar. So I do get quite fascinated how people can create a market for a product like a TikTok video or Johnny Ramone's guitar when probably 95% of the population actually don't care. So,
Sean, that reminds me of the conversation with Robbie Ferguson, and he was talking about lots of different applications. And one that, aside from TikTok, I began to understand was in the world of Fortnite, the online shoot 'em up game, basically, where you get really competitive atmospheres. People are known for being very good at it. They become digital stars. And he used the example of maybe one day Ninja, who is one of the competitors, could win a tournament in a certain costume or skin, as they call it. And that could be, there could be a limited edition of 10,000 of them only for sale, which in that market is small. And then they would be made available for purchase. And you could own the Ninja skin that he won that comp with. And that had value because 10,000 people thought it had value.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. People ascribe a value to it, and therefore there's a market. Like pink diamonds, Michael.
Oh, this is my favourite story, I think, of the week. And it's one actually that we prepare for another plug for our newsletter. It's one that we mentioned in Friday's newsletter. It's the Pink Diamond Tender, the annual Argyle Pink Diamond Tender. So Rio Tinto's Argyle Diamond Mine in Western Australia, it closed last year. So the auction that's underway at the moment will...
Do you mean auction?
The auction, sorry.
Yep.
Sorry about that. The auction that's underway at the moment is effectively the last one. So this is the last chance to secure one of these directly from the source. They're not ordinary diamonds by any stretch. There's less than 1% of the diamonds, I think, from the mine have been pink, so extremely rare. They sell for around 35 times the price of a white diamond.
Wow.
The thing I love about this story, though, is that it's got a touch of kind of the James Bond kind of about it. You have to be invited to take part in the auction for one of these pink diamonds. Viewings of the gems are held in a secret location. If you're one of the bidders, you don't even find out where you're going until the very last minute. And then the winning bids are never actually revealed. What we do know, though, is that the price of these pink diamonds sold each year at this tender have actually increased now by about 600% since the year 2000, which is not a bad return. And it's funny because you do tend to think of Rio Tinto as an iron ore miner, really, and this is really about as far from that as you can get, that it is really quite a glamorous side to the company.
So when was the auction held?
It's underway at the moment. It closes on the 5th.
Wow, incredible. And when we won't really find the results, though?
No, we'll just suddenly know. People just pop up wearing some pink diamond bling. So, yeah, it's kind of shrouded in mystery, which is all clever, very clever marketing.
Now, Michael, while you're talking, you're a bit of a fan of the rapid antigen COVID tests.
I absolutely am, and I'm enormously relieved that the government's giving us approval to do it from November 1, especially when you said that they've been in use in the UK for a while, they've been in use in the US for a while, and the benefit of it, as the name suggests, is it's rapid. You get results in 20 minutes. To me, it's kind of the start to the return to some kind of form of normal life. There's no longer kind of getting in the car, waiting for kind of an hour and a half to get a test, and then waiting for a day, 2 days to get the results. The fact is that some workplaces are already doing this outside a work site. In order to get in, you have to actually pass the test. It just speeds things back up. The other reason, though, that I like it is that they're a little bit less invasive. I think, from what I understand, the swab still has to go up the nose, but perhaps not quite as far. Some of the testers, I don't know if you've experienced this as well.
Very enthusiastic.
Everyone has had them.
Very enthusiastic.
It feels like they're, in fact, trying to take a brain sample. And it's just, though my favourite one was a little while ago, sitting in the car, sitting there with the head back, and it wasn't too bad, this particular one. Very dry, very scratchy. I'm like, okay, gritted teeth, get through it, that's fine, done. The bloke's just writing the details on the side of the tube, and then he goes, oh sorry, dropped it. Like, sorry? I laughed. I thought he was joking. He goes, got to do this one again. And I thought he was just pretending. And I look out the window, and down on the ground in the gravel of the car park is just the swab that had been up my nose. I'm like, you really do have to do it again. Please be gentle.
Ouch.
I will be stocking up on the DIY tests, and I won't be going much past the end of the nose, I suspect.
I think it'll be a really interesting process, these antigen tests, because particularly for Western Australia and Queensland, who are determined to remain closed and determined to not have any cases in their states, when New South Wales and Victoria and the ACT reopen, there will be thousands of cases still running around the nation. And Western Australia and Queensland at some point are going to have to open up. They can't remain closed forever. And there'll be a jump in cases in those states. And so, we'll get all the carry on with that. But I wonder whether it's these antigen tests are how the states are going to manage it somehow, or, you can't stop tourists going into Queensland. I just think the state will collapse if that's the case. But as soon as they do, they'll end up with a lot more cases. And when I saw that story during the week and the fact that they're available from the 1st of November, I thought actually maybe this is the way of somehow allowing greater mobility of workforces and labour and things like that between states. Maybe this is actually just the thing that those state premiers, Mark McGowan and Anastasia Palaszczuk, need to allow people into their state. Now, I know I have put a very serious tone on this whole morning conversation, and I do apologise to both of you.
Well, someone has to.
That's right. I just think it could be a real breakthrough in how we deal, and particularly how Western Australia and Queensland deal with COVID.
I would like to think that you are right, Sean, but I suspect it will take more than a rapid antigen test to get Mark McGowan to allow people into Western Australia.
A man from the West, Adam?
I think regrettably that Christmas is gone for WA. I hope that's not the case, but I think it will be. And then heading toward the 2022 school year calendar. But I think at some point, because of a range of things from federal incentives or funding to the politics of it in and out of WA, is that he's going to have to give in. And I think that this rapid test, whether it's the real reason or not, it might just be one of the reasons he can do it. And I think it'll be interesting to see the explanation that comes around, finally opening up, whether it's 90%, whatever other conditions might come along. I think everyone's keen to travel again generally, and the less rules we have that are unique to states, the far better for us all in Australia and for the country internationally. So I think the politics of it are going to see that tide turn probably in the new year. And maybe this can just be one of the suite of reasons he chooses underpinning it.
Fair enough. We'll be back with more in a minute. Now, Adamski and Michael, I'd like to talk about the AFR power list, which I must say has become slightly redundant given the person at the top of the power list resigned on Friday. Each year, the Fin Review gets together or gets some serious players in the nation together to pick the most powerful people. In previous years, I've been involved on the outskirts of that. It came up this year as the 4 premiers are the most powerful people in the country rather than the Prime Minister. Every year the Prime Minister comes in at number 1. Scott Morrison came in at number 2. Now, this year the 4 premiers, Gladys Berejiklian from New South Wales, who is no longer Premier, as we know, Daniel Andrews from Victoria, Anastasia Palaszczuk from Queensland, and Mark McGowan from Western Australia, they took the top spot. Do you think that's fair? We'll get on to Gladys in a moment, but just in terms of rankings, are the premiers more powerful than the Prime Minister at this point?
I agree, Sean. I think we've seen it in the last 12 months, perhaps more than ever. The state premiers have had to look after their state electorates, and their state electorates have rewarded them for doing so. The incumbents have remained incredibly popular. So I think we've seen it really on display like never before.
Michael, what do you think? And Michael, I'd like to bring you in on your thoughts on Gladys Berejiklian at this point too. You'd probably agree that the premiers are the most powerful group, but what do you make of Ms. Berejiklian's decision to quit on Friday?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and we'll have to wait and see kind of what does come out about her at ICAC later in the month. But she's been a somewhat divisive premier in the last couple of months. That would always happen during the period of a fairly intense lockdown. And we spoke about this weeks ago about how early she seemed to realise the need to flick the switch from trying to get down to 0 cases and trying to get the vaccination rate up to reopen New South Wales. And I think that decision now, everyone would agree, was the right one, because we've seen that it's just, you can't get back down to 0. So I think she's had a very, very tough time during the lockdowns in New South Wales and has copped an absolute hammering in the media. Look, I actually really feel for her and feel for the position that she was in to make that decision on Friday, because I think she has done a good job of leading the state through a very difficult time. And you do just hope that there was enough of a reason for her to resign. Otherwise, the state will have lost a very good leader. Yeah,
I think she was terrific around COVID, but I think the stuff around Darryl Maguire was really poor. Yeah. And I think she got through it because of COVID, and she's undoubtedly a very, very good leader for the state of New South Wales in the period it's been through in the last 2 or 3 years. Without COVID, I don't know whether she still would have been in that job given the Darryl Maguire stuff.
Remember at the time when the Darryl Maguire story first came out, there were a few stories about the fact that federal Labor was silent on it, that normally that everyone would kind of join in, even though it's a state issue, that really the only people really going for Gladys during that time was the New South Wales Labor Party, that the federal Labor Party just went really quiet because they acknowledged how important it was for New South Wales to have some stability through the main part of the pandemic, and that really there was recognition at the time then that Gladys was probably the best person to do that, because at that point New South Wales was really leading the way in terms of zero cases and showing how effectively a state can operate in the midst of COVID. So it's been a fascinating year, and unfortunately for the former Premier, that ended on Friday.
I reckon she woke up yesterday morning and just thought, oh, thank God that's all over, because, wow, she's been under pressure, and there must be some sense of relief to actually not have to front the media every day.
Absolutely. I mean, she'll have a tough enough time in the next few weeks when she's having to front ICAC, but until then, at least she can probably sleep in.
So speaking of that pressure, I think when the relationship between the former Premier Gladys Berejiklian and Daryl Maguire came to light, the best take on it, I thought, was that of the Batuta Advocate, which ran with a headline that said, "We accept that our mum, the people of New South Wales, our mum, has been having sex, but we will not accept Daryl Maguire as our father." They are very good.
Look, let's finish it off with something a little less serious. The business of emojis. Adam, I know this is very close to your heart.
So this may just be a comment for discussion, but some may even call it a gripe.
Yes.
The expression, "I have no words," is one that I have to query, because it does actually include saying a few words. And usually, if you haven't thought of how you might express something, then you can give it a go. But if you don't actually have words to express feeling, emojis have been very helpful in recent years. And I'm not a big user of them, mainly because I've not really worked out how to use them. But the Unicode Consortium has approved 37 new emojis in this year. And one of them, for when you have no words, is called the melting face emoji. Now, it's a bit unsettling to look at. It has, the traditional yellow smiley face, but half of it is fixed and half of it is melting.
A little bit Salvador Dali-esque, can I suggest?
Yeah, it's true.
Yes.
Half melting smile and it dripping into a puddle.
Maybe we could get an NFT on the digital property. Like maybe this whole morning podcast can come together on this melting emoji.
We're going to do a tip, buy the NFT on the melting face emoji. I might use this one if I have no words. Michael, do you have a favourite emoji?
I do. It's the only emoji I use, and that is the face palm emoji. It just
That's a good one
works.
for when you have no words. Sean, what emoji would you use the most? You're quite a utility-based sort of communicator often, and would it just be the thumbs up?
Well, look, I'm very much a words man. I mean, I liked the eggplant until I was told what it meant. And then I just got scared about using
Brittany?
any. Then I got scared thinking I'm using things I shouldn't be using. So I'm not an emoji man. The eggplant did me.
Did it now. My favourite story about the eggplant, I was in the shops. It was in Coles one day, and in the fruit and veg section, I see this young couple going through, and the boyfriend just picks up the eggplant and just shows it to his girlfriend, and she just goes, "Ugh," and walks away. So that was the perfect crossover between emojis and real life.
I think we might have to wrap it up at this.
Yeah, we're done.
Look, that's it for this morning, Sunday, the 3rd of October, 2021. Michael, Adam, thank you for being part of it, I think.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Sean.
I'll be back tomorrow morning with a regular edition of Fear and Greed. Of course, I'll be joined by Michael Thompson. Enjoy your Sunday and go Souths.